started. Welcome to Leadership and Decision Making. I'd like to introduce Christopher Watson from Transforming Community.
A lot, Brenda, and NCJ, FCJ for making space for us to hold this webinar. So we're TC-TAT. Communities.org. So as was stated, I am Christopher Watson. So as you can see here on our next slide, whoops. Against women on the national level, with a special emphasis on prevention work and domestic violence, sexual assault, teen dating violence, and gender-based bullying. You can visit training and resources to organizations in all 21 OVW program-funded areas. Of our work and our organizations. We hosted a 4-day Immersion Institute back in the U.S. to host 4 webinars for organizations in all 21 OVW. Four webinar series. So the first 3 webinars can be found on our website at So TC-TAT is excited to offer today's final webinar in this series in partnership They have provided specialized training on facilitative leadership to scores of teams that won. Andrea Nagel, her
here with all of you for today's webinar. Let me introduce my organization. For social change is a collaboration inspiring local and our collaboration technology has 3 approaches that I just together. We also foster connectivity. Along the way. And lastly, we build leadership power to change hearts minds, and policies for the better. To carry of our practice. And they are building networks, a little bit about each of these lenses, and then move us on. The first is different from organizations. Why are networks, rather than in building and sustaining thriving networks? So we pay work. How are we ensuring that those most affected those on the margins? These are the questions that guide our work. We believe that the root of love. It is a loaded term. An outward expression of the community and society we are trying to bring into being. Love looks like in public. Justice is the ultimate expression of love. Be an authentic and trusting relationship to ourselves and to one another. This framework on decision making. So my name is Andrea Nag. And I get to share very helpful processes with people that learn and therefore exponentially grow their impact. And international context. So now for a little bit of a preview but if not, at least we will have covered some ground in that. Time is that you will be able to have a way to determine making decisions that impact others. And the basic question 5-option decision-making framework and give you a chance to really practice using it. We're going to hopefully ensure that you are very engaged. because you're probably already doing it in some fashion, so I may not be actually sharing from when you move that implicit knowledge to tell you the truth, decision making, do I probably making hundreds of decisions a day, and you probably shower. So I want to support that. Are just overbrimming with the multi that the tool that we review together helps bring greater awareness poll questions. You know, you are on the line for. So you can obviously choose more than one of those options. Let's see what you say. As a major yeah, the input can be divergent, and people's expectations about their level of involvement can be quite different than so those seem to be the so all of this is truly what time. You named it. It's the number one. Not only is there more to do, but we are actually expected to get it done faster. catching up. Too many ideas. This came up as a very right answer or the way to go. You might also at times they might also feel resentment. Excluded, or may feel they are intentionally in the work that we do together. And of course, there's always disengagement. Of what we can leverage from that place. And at the same time, we know it's challenging. So I'd like to consider, and this would be a good time, Brenda, to bring on the notes pad. Type the ideas that you come up with. And we're going to look at the chat box or what are your, what do you see as some of the benefits to practice of decision making? Absolutely, yep. The degree to which people can actually participate. Thank you. Exposes people and sometimes the folks we work with don't fully appreciate the
I have a couple of folks who are saying things like creative solutions, different.
So I'd like ownership. Yeah, that came up in you pointed it out beautifully. People become more committed, right? Because they're engaged in the decision, so therefore with them their perspective. Innovation. And we know that there are better informed decisions to challenge our assumptions and to explore different experiences. And so by bringing folks in, you actually get increased commitment. So I'd like to just now ask another poll. Do you find that most of your work all right, clearly we're seeing that a small number are saying not really, not so much, but certainly the majority. Good. So has things settled down? I think we've got, yeah, great. Next slide, I'd like us to consider that and acknowledge that we do have so yeah, we have challenges. There's no question in bringing all this on. Engagement in order to pull off the kind of work that we're trying to do. Because as leaders, we really have to figure out how to decision is one way to address that, which is quite different. Between maximum appropriate to the decision at hand anyway, type, okay, we're seeing people are typing. Okay, great. So what we've noted and in that the maximum appropriate involvement to the decision so I am asking, what do you see as the key distinction between the too many hands spoil the project, too few? Kind of saying the same thing. It is really more of an optimistic versus pessimistic view of involving. Minimum necessary may be viewed as elitist. You are pointing out ways in on this question exactly what this framework that I'm about to share is going to help us explore, because you're absolutely see if we could get into this and explore this a little bit further. And so it helps to have a strategy. Paper. I'm going is ultimately yours to make. That needs to be made in the near future. Can you think of a decision? So I'm going to maybe share with you maybe some. Because this decision that you are going to identify will be the one that we carry. There's a friend of mine who's been very involved in helping was what to name this new space. So as the person who has been leading the charge, I'm going to give you a minute to think of a decision that. All right. So it's often group. Right, hire new staff. You know, do we or don't we hire new staff? And if so, what? Maybe there may be another question. All right. So I'm going to move us. Answer to that question, but you will have a process and greater. All right. People don't experience me as breaking up. Just keep us posted as to whether you are continuing to experience challenges. Still breaking up. Oh. Do about that. I'm going to see if you might be able to offer some thoughts there.
I'm assuming that the other participants would have to do the same.
I'm going to continue on, and I'll try to speak up a little louder and see if that helps. And I'm also going to decide a decision. Hopefully you getting to a good, clear. So we call those others stakeholders, and we think about. I'll have a summary slide that will. This is where we can bring attention to power dynamics and ask what perspectives are more at the margins, and who are the folks we don't typically shared with you about the community garden in my neighborhood. I'm wondering, don't come first when we think about children, right? Yep. Thank you. Yes. Beautiful. We know that it can only get better from that place because it's needed and maybe potentially really important stakeholders in our. It is made. To unusual voices, yep. And folks exactly. There's a lot that goes in a name, right? And so, category of stakeholders, and that is the implementers. These are the who might those be in naming the community garden? They're the kids in the neighborhood, right? They were named as potentially. If they're showing up in more than one place. Environmentalists, yes. Thanks. Your friend that's doing all the legwork. And of course, there's also the blockers. This is a group of folk, right? So we have a local example here with Market Basket. I don't after much protest, actually achieved the restoration of their ousted boss. Sometimes this is an important group of people. Informal influencers. So or very well liked. Can you think of anyone in your organization or network So an example I'll share. Yeah, let's see. And shared with me that the first person he got to know everyone in the building and knows the building itself quite well. And he knew that in order with not a lot of positional power, but certainly a lot of influence. The computer guy at the agency. All right. Thank you. So there's another. Those with lived experience and not just credentialed experience. This is what and then I know that some folks are very who critical people in different networks are. Who are those critical connectors? Do you have anyone in your decision getting made and whose job or name might be on the line? Because sometimes people say, well, where am I in all of this? You're asking me to think about all these different people. cover a quick overview of the 8 categories. Whew, okay, so that was a mouthful. That was propose that you consider all these people in your decisions. The thing is to consider all of these stakeholder groups. And because this if the answer is yes, then whom would you involve and in what way? You can be most strategic. All right, so any thoughts so far? Okay, connectors. So folks are sharing some ideas about connectors. That was very what happens when we don't think of the blockers, right? What happens when we don't think of the unusual? To the levels of involvement in decision-making frame. One having to do with the level of involvement on the bottom, and the one that goes up is and I'm going to illustrate that relationship now, because right now you as a leader want to be really clear about which level they have in that process, if any. And then announces the decision to those who would be affected or who must. Or don't we bring on new interns? The leader might say, assistance, given the recent departure of 2 colleagues, and knowing that we are so notice that in that example, one, and 2, that that leader is going to be making that decision. So everyone's now really clear. All right, so if we now go up one level, suggestions, information, and then makes a decision. So in that, I will then decide tomorrow after speaking with each of them. tomorrow, and that I'm going to be talking to 2 people, consulting 2 individuals in the organization. All right, there's yet another. So we are I am going to make the decision about whether to bring on new interns right away. So what I'm letting people in that instance know is that I will still So I am curious if you input from individuals in deciding and gathering input from a Okay, so I see some people are typing away and hopefully we will individuals may be those with stronger influence within the larger group, huh? Mm-hmm. May take less time to consult in gather input on potential unintended, has potentially unintended consequences. There's pros and cons to each of these levels of involvement. Be the perfect approach. A minute. So let's keep moving. Thank you so much for your really help. Consensus is a big word. Has little not the only nor the best. It's just one for your consideration. The decision is one that every member of the team is willing to voice among equal partners. All right, and so there's a fallback. Notice the arrow. So the way I would as a So we need to decide whether to bring on new interns. The decision-making process we're going to give this decision 20 minutes. If we cannot reach see that the leader has been completely transparent about the fact that if built into the process to ensure that we get through to the consensus is and what consensus is not, because as I mentioned, there's a lot. Meaning we want everyone to be in on the decision and implement. So in our definition, that second point is very critical. We typically can find that when we the agreement really is. And so consensus is not majority vote. And that is where the leader defines and delegates the decision to an individual or a group. University at this time, the parameters that I would like you to if we do bring these interns on, and if you decide not to, clear parameters are being given to the group to all right. So I have been speaking for a very long time. Group input takes a lot more time, and some people become disenchanted because the ideas were not included. Put giving parameters and time limits is a great idea. Oh my gosh. So true. The more, okay, you guys are going fast and furious. Oh, absolutely. That is so great, Danielle. And I think that is such a great point. If situation where a decision is being deliberated in a meeting, aren't at this table. So we have just been batting around this conversation. It's so frustrating, isn't it? Exactly. If they are involved in conversations that are clearly because we aren't clear about the decision-making process. Ah, distrust. Okay. Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Helps everyone be a winner, in a sense. But I'm going to decide. Some people are fabulous with that. It's just knowing that that's the case versus
Question. Brenda, there's a question in the Q&A box.
not clear how delegating with constraints. I think I understand your question. So, yeah, the ownership of an idea. So, thank you for asking. And the reason to someone else. Now, granted, for setting them up for success by having the knowledge that I hold that they don't and that they need to know in order to come up with the best. It is really best not to take it back. So one of because that can then become one of your constraints. And have us as leaders say, oh, no, shoot, no, that's and my experience has been that leaders leave and pass it off to other stakeholders who are not leaders might end up living in one of these bubbles. We are actually either spend a lot of our time deciding and announcing, or we is, do we live in any one of those particular bubbles, or do we Lisa, my experience has been that leaders pass it off to those who are not invested in the project. About some factors. Which are, what are the factors we need to consider? I'm going to see if we can track some of these questions and see if we can get There was a question that had to do, and we can go back. I think there's a way to go back. And then the other question was, as a leader. Another great question. So, example, and we happen to, as leaders, always go to it's probably not lost on people around us that we always seem to go to Leticia, for example. And how come I never do the decision-making process? So here's where needs to be made, the hiring of new interns, for example. I'm going because she has been really good now decide to consult other people in the organization. Or she may do a transparency, transparency, transparency into the degree is your question, but I hope it gets to at least some of it. That I want to share with you. So notice there is one more that we've seen groups use. And so getting to consensus is a little trickier than trying to do that among 10. Could consider using, and while it involves much higher threshold than what is 51% of any group is not a very clear mandate. We are going to go forward with this decision if we hit 75%. To the greatest degree possible, gets behind a decision. The greatest number of people on board with a decision to go forward. And there is something I will revisit this question about the leader who puts people in charge who are actually not that one. So that's a little different, and we will get to that. If we consider ourselves, though, talking that through, and then revisit this question about when it's other people's decisions. Are perfectly collaborative. So than another. And here's the who gets to determine if other people are involved? And you are at that decision-making table, you aren't. Tremendous power in being able to decide who's in and who. Curious if anyone has any reflections there. Power broker. We're going to. All right. So here. Disadvantages to opening up a decision-making process because it can feel very cumbersome. Funny thing is, we always seem to find the we relationships. Avoid all the mess that you would have to clean up afterwards, and spend the time thinking. I just want to leave you with for a moment and think about that. All right. And yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We do have factors that we have to contend with, and I'm curious, what are some of budget? Thank you. Time do you have to make the decision? What level of resources, people, money, capacity do you have to deal with? Collaborative decision-making process. People's, yes. Difficult to work with equal partners to try to make decisions without a designated leader. Consensus is what you as a group are going for. As a group, it's better to know what your fallback is before you make decisions. Factors that we often have to consider when deciding. The importance of the decision. How critical is this decision? Requires some level of information that we don't have. Are actually perfectly suited to increasing the cohesion in a group. With my colleagues. And then there's capability. Many of you, how able and you were, several of you spoke to interest. is an excellent opportunity to engage. And we all have our own individual circadian rhythm. Folks that were going for their hearing in the afternoon process, but different outcomes. And the major factor in that was think through. All right. Please talk about we do a lot of our work in network context. How much time do we have available? Like, all these absolutely still apply. And thank you for that question. Let's see what resources available, right? Funding, sure. Remember that little trusty piece of paper or file that you started on your computer? On this decision, you have for the decision you are responsible for. Down? If it's a group of people, in terms of their perspectives on this question. To work much harder to be inclusive in a community context, yes. Issues to come up about community residents to our advocacy agenda. Federal partners, law enforcement, health services, schools, facilities, our county. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. So, what make this list first, and then figure on that in that decision. So, The idea here for each of those stakeholders, the idea would be to think from their perspective want to see happen with respect to that decision. Take a best guess at surfacing the interest. Thank you, Lynn. See if you can take a moment to think. Give me a minute. Of the complexity of now is take one stakeholder group or individual in this decision-making process. So their perspective, let's imagine Lynn's example for a moment. Or, your example, if you were to pick one stakeholder group, get implemented. Okay. Is the decision, and how important is this stakeholder's involvement on stakeholder provide a unique set of again, building teamwork and interest. How interested might they be? You need the buy-in of a lot of your stakeholder groups. Now what are you going to do? And you are wanting to involve more people and very strategic. And a lot of things are getting important as I do. Great point. Stakeholders. That's a great point. involvement or this decision won't go well, what would on that? All right. What's in their interest in the first place? And I would suggest that you do. We have only, 20 minutes left, right? I think, Chris, is that right? Slide, we have sort of where it all comes together. It all comes together. What is the maximum appropriate level of involvement for that? Because you will be sharing that publicly before the decision. Great. So if folks have an think about the factors. All right. What I'm going to show you next is sort of the summary list of questions, 2 slides. We would offer you as a decision-making framework. To be considered, not necessarily involved. What are the ways? What is the appropriate level of involvement for each stakeholder group? So that okay. I have 100%. I'd love to just open it up and hear a little bit from you all about yes, I love it. learn more about sort of serves as a summary, or another way to understand. Fall into three possible buckets when truth be a leader where there's nobody else, just you, or consensus, or you can be providing input to the decision making. Involvement by way as an individual, as a member of a group. Or you are you at the table? Are you informing the decision? Are you not at all? So questions or thoughts? Usefulness to you in your work. Okay, good. All right. I'm just curious if more in hierarchical fields. Okay, great. Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, it does sound like learn something new. Because in hard, ends up really creating the conditions hear time and time again that one of the biggest pain points in networks this is the very thing that trips them up and often erodes. And you will find you'll get better at it, and before you know it, and motivation will increase as a result. Especially if it is a very big decision. Oh, yes. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, let's see. Is somebody saying some stuff? This is not to say that you as a leader should not be doing on this chart, but you might want to note, which is called decide and not announce. Decision get made, and how did it get great that you will be making your decision? It has application everywhere, yes. All right, let's see. I'm going to revisit some of the ones that were. Oh, all right. Oh, and there's more coming in. All right. So find out if that person is open to consider for not moving on the decision. How do we get others to share power if they hold more power? Fabulous question. Yes. certainly in a hierarchical organization as would be the police. The direction the leader might be providing and whether to speak at all. Is the decision being made at that table with weight? Because that would be something we would have to clarify up front. Or about what conversation they are coming in on. A consensus decision-making process, and we have both the chief, police chief, see that those of lower rank in the police department are gathering input offline before that decision-making moment. Officials could be group at all times, which does not do justice. First, reached at that moment in that meeting, that you're trying to get ways to talk to those police officers, maybe one-on-one, so that would be gathering input from individuals. Need to create for people to feel and allows them to participate. And so that's why bringing this level of conversation in other ways. I'm wondering if that is helpful. Are there other questions? Oh, good, Charlene, thanks. Clarifying about this is that consensus process or decision today at this meeting on recommendation we as a committee are going to whittle it down to the top 3. However, final decision, and if we were to pick the final person to hire around high-level recommendations that are narrowing in on the options that then the decision maker chooses from. Being brought in to think that they are actually going to make a decision when So Christopher, I don't know if this is a good time to turn it back to you. I'm not sure I see any more. Hi.
Okay, I wonder if we lost Christopher there temporarily.
Okay.
No, we're
Today in this learning format, and I at times find it challenging because right now I comment about this webinar being the opportunity about the decision-making process, and I did indeed learn a lot about that from violence against women movements. Expert in particular that caught my attention about that commitment to survivor-defined and survivor-centered. A maximum involvement of survivors in decision-making. So that's something that really as you were moving through this material, I know for me as because sometimes there's a fear of being wrong or of that for us as women leaders sometimes can be we want to involve everyone. Analysis to the leadership role. That was a reflection. And finally, I just want to say before a goal or a core value, but what does that mean in thought that was really helpful to learn more about that. So my question now is, and given that most of us in the social justice movement and I often find that there are some challenges because people are not necessarily there's still this undercurrent of people wanting to take around this decision making, working with the complexity of community, knowing that
Yes. Wow. First, analysis around both as women leaders, the implications. The things that come up for us in these roles. We have to engage with in order to move our work. Around food systems and around racial equity and on. In the work that we do, in the processes that we design and facilitate, on this project or on this team or in this collaborative, we use it all the time. So we will build consensus. Is explained, but so that but we start building these new norms and new conversation about values. So one of our values may be for whom that is not the way that they operate or feel they can, given this. Are the rules of engagement. And this is the way we are. Rather than attacking each other's point of view. New structures, these new ways of being that point us in a direction
So thank so National Council for Juvenile and Family Court Judges for partnering with us to host this your feedback is always helpful and it's important for us in shaping www.transformcommunities.org. Transform Communities. Great information that she provided. And please don't forget to fill out the evaluation, which will pop up immediately.
No, just thank you all.
Likewise, thank you for being with us.
For the success of these webinars that we have your feedback, so please complete the evaluation that you're directed